Do you know what I've learned after talking to so many older women about their homes? It's never the big, obvious things that weigh us down the most. It's the quiet clutter hiding in plain sight. The forgotten objects in the back of a closet, the papers gathering dust in a drawer, the medicine bottles lined up in the cabinet. These little things might not seem dangerous, but they can silently steal your peace, your energy, and even your independence. And here's the shocking part. Most women don't realize it until it's too late. That's why today, I want to share with you the 7 items you absolutely must declutter now, before they start making your senior years harder than they need to be. But I'll warn you, one of these items is so overlooked, yet so common, that it could be the single reason why your home feels heavier than it should. If you skip ahead or click away, you might miss the one thing that could finally set you free from years of unnecessary burden. So stay with me. Together we're going to walk through each of these items not just as a list but through real stories of women just like you, who held on to these things for too long and the emotional toll it took on their lives. I promise by the end of this video, you won't just see your home differently, you'll see yourself differently. And before we dive in, let me ask you for something small but important. If you haven't already, subscribe to this channel. Think of it as your gentle reminder that you're not alone in this journey. Each week, I share insights and stories that can truly make life lighter, easier, and more joyful for seniors. If you don't hit subscribe, you might miss that one video that could change how you live tomorrow. And I wouldn't want you to lose out on that. Now, let's begin this journey together, starting with why decluttering even matters in the first place. A few years ago, I sat with a woman named Helen in her living room. She was in her early 70s, full of stories, laughter, and warmth. But as I looked around, her house seemed to swallow her whole. Every surface had something stacked on it. Papers, books, boxes of things she thought she might need someday. She smiled when she talked, but every time she reached for something, she had to move 3 other items out of the way. And quietly she admitted to me, "I don't feel at home in my own house anymore." That stayed with me. Because clutter isn't just about things. It's about what those things do to us. Science actually backs this up. Studies show that clutter raises cortisol levels, the stress hormone in our bodies. For older adults, especially women, that stress can make everything feel harder. Sleep becomes restless, small decisions feel overwhelming, and even our physical health suffers. It's not just untidy shelves, it's the invisible weight pressing down on your heart and mind. And here's something else we don't talk about enough. Clutter steals mobility. When too much furniture or too many items fill a space, it creates hazards. A misplaced box or a chair in the wrong corner can become a dangerous obstacle. Falls in the home are one of the leading causes of injuries among seniors, and clutter often plays a silent role. But beyond the physical and the mental, clutter has an emotional grip. Sometimes it's guilt. We hold on to gifts we never used because we don't want to feel ungrateful. Sometimes it's identity. Clothes from a past version of ourselves we can't quite let go of. And sometimes it's pure fear. Fear that letting go means forgetting a part of our lives. The truth is, decluttering isn't just about cleaning. It's about reclaiming control. It's about creating a space where you can breathe, move freely, and find peace. When we hold on to too much, we're not preserving our past. We're weighing down our future. That's why these 7 items I'm about to share with you are so critical. Because they're not just things that take up space. They're things that, if left too long, could cost you your comfort, your safety, and your joy. So let's begin with the very first item on the list. And it might be sitting right now in your bathroom cabinet. The first item we need to talk about is expired medications. Now, I know what you might be thinking. They're just pills. If I ever need them, at least I'll have them. But keeping old or expired medicine can be far more dangerous than many realize. I remember sitting at a kitchen table with a woman I'll call Marie. She had a neat little box tucked away in her cupboard, filled with dozens of pill bottles, some so old the labels were faded. When I asked why she kept them, she shrugged and said, "You never know when you might need it again." That sounded reasonable at first, until she admitted that once, when her arthritis flared up, she reached into that box and took some pain medicine, without realizing it had expired years earlier. That one decision left her feeling dizzy, nauseous, and scared. And Marie isn't alone. Studies show that many seniors keep expired medications, often to save money or just in case. But what most don't know is that expired pills can lose potency. Or worse, their chemical makeup can change and become harmful. Antibiotics, for instance, can stop working as intended, leading to infections that don't heal properly. Even over-the-counter medicines like cough syrup or aspirin can become unsafe with time. Another hidden risk is confusion. Picture this. You're not feeling well, you're tired, and you have a cabinet full of nearly identical bottles. Which one is safe? Which one is current? In a moment of weakness or illness, it's far too easy to grab the wrong one. And for seniors, medication errors are one of the leading causes of hospital visits. The truth is, keeping expired medicine doesn't make us prepared. It makes us vulnerable. The good news: there are safe and simple ways to clear them out. Most pharmacies offer disposal programs. Some communities even host medication take-back days. And if you can't access those, the FDA gives guidelines for safe disposal at home. When Marie finally decided to let go of her expired medications, I remember the relief in her face. Her cabinet was no longer a confusing jumble. It was clear, simple, and safe. She said, "I feel like I just made my home a little less dangerous." And she was right. So ask yourself, what's sitting in your cabinet right now that may be silently putting you at risk? This could be the first and easiest step to not only decluttering your home but protecting your health. Now, let's move on to the second item. And this one might be hiding in piles of paper stacked in your office or tucked away in drawers. The second item we need to talk about is old papers and bills. You know, the ones that pile up on countertops, fill up drawers, or live in those boxes in the corner of the living room. I've seen it countless times. What starts as a few important papers ends up becoming stacks that quietly grow taller over the years. I'll never forget visiting a friend's mother, Helen, who was in her late 70s. She had lived in the same house for nearly 50 years, and tucked away in her dining room were bags of old utility bills, bank statements, and letters. Some were so old they had yellowed edges. When I asked why she kept them, she said, "What if I need proof someday?" That fear of needing something later had kept her from letting go, even when the papers no longer served a purpose. The problem is, clutter like this doesn't just take up space, it also takes away peace of mind. Studies from Princeton University's Neuroscience Institute found that physical clutter competes for our attention, reducing focus and increasing stress. Imagine trying to relax in your living room, but you know those piles are lurking nearby, reminding you of unfinished tasks and unmade decisions. It's mentally exhausting, even if you don't notice it consciously. And beyond the stress, there's another danger: safety. Old papers are a fire hazard. They attract dust, mold, and sometimes even pests. Plus, they often contain sensitive information: account numbers, addresses, even medical details. The longer they sit around, the higher the risk of those details falling into the wrong hands. But here's the hopeful part. Letting go doesn't mean discarding everything. For Helen, we created 3 categories: papers to keep, papers to shred, and papers to recycle. Important documents, like her birth certificate, tax returns from the past 7 years, and her will, were carefully organized into a fireproof folder. Everything else was either shredded or recycled. The transformation was incredible. Her dining room felt brighter, lighter. She even said she could breathe easier sitting there. So here's a question to reflect on. How many papers are you holding onto just in case, when in reality they're only holding you back? Now, the third item is something far more visible: clothing. Closets full of clothes that no longer fit or serve us can weigh on our hearts more than we realize. The third item we need to face is clothing that no longer fits or serves us. For so many of us, our closets become like time capsules, holding on to pieces from every stage of our lives. The dress we wore to our daughter's wedding, the jeans we keep hoping we'll fit into again, the jacket we once loved but haven't touched in 10 years. I once sat with a woman named Clara in her early 80s, who told me she couldn't part with her closet because each piece carried a story. She pulled out a sequined blouse from the 70s, smiling as she recalled the night she wore it to a dance with her husband. Then her eyes welled up as she admitted she hadn't worn it in over 40 years. The clothes weren't just clothes, they were memories. And letting go felt, in some way, like losing pieces of her past. But here's the truth. Keeping clothes we never wear doesn't bring those memories back. It only traps us in guilt and frustration. Psychologists have found that clutter in the closet creates what they call decision fatigue. Every morning, instead of opening the closet and feeling joy, we feel stuck. We see clothes that don't fit, that no longer reflect who we are, and we're left with a heavy reminder of what we've lost: youth, size, or a different season of life. There's also a practical side. Clothes we don't wear take up valuable space, making it harder to find the pieces we actually love. And when closets are overcrowded, clothes wrinkle, attract dust, and sometimes even moths. It becomes a cycle of waste, both of space and of energy. When I helped Clara sort her closet, I encouraged her to keep just a handful of memory clothes. We carefully placed those few treasures in a special memory box, separate from her daily wardrobe. The rest, she donated to a local women's shelter, where those pieces could bless someone else. Clara told me later that it felt like a weight had been lifted, like she had honored her past while embracing her present. So let me ask you this. When you look at your closet, do you see a reflection of the woman you are today? Or are you clinging to clothes that belong to a version of you that no longer exists? And speaking of clinging, the fourth item is one many of us never even think about, but it piles up quietly and steals more space than we realize. The fourth item we need to talk about is expired or unused medications and toiletries. Now, we touched earlier on expired medicine, but this goes beyond the pill bottles in the cabinet. It's also about the lotions, shampoos, makeup, and half-used bottles of products that line our bathroom shelves and drawers. I remember visiting my neighbor, Ruth, who was in her late 70s. She had an entire bathroom cabinet filled with creams and pills. Some were unopened, some half-used, and many expired. She admitted she couldn't remember which ones worked and which ones didn't, but she hated the idea of wasting money by throwing them out. So they just sat there. The danger is twofold. First, expired toiletries lose effectiveness and can cause irritation or even infections. Imagine using an old tube of mascara or lotion. Bacteria builds up over time, and suddenly what was meant to pamper you could harm you instead. The FDA even warns against using old makeup and creams because of contamination risks. Second, expired or unused medications are one of the leading causes of accidental poisoning in seniors. When there are too many bottles, some current, some outdated, it becomes easy to take the wrong one. And the consequences can be serious. Studies show thousands of older adults end up in the emergency room every year due to medication mix-ups. Here's the hopeful part. Decluttering your bathroom and medicine cabinet not only protects your health but also restores peace of mind. Start with a simple step. Check expiration dates. If it's expired or if you haven't used it in over a year, let it go. Pharmacies often provide safe disposal bins for medications, and toiletries can be recycled or discarded responsibly. When Ruth finally cleared out her cabinet, she called me the next day and said, "It feels like I finally know what's safe again. I don't have to guess every time I open the cabinet." That kind of clarity is priceless. So let me ask you, is your bathroom a safe and soothing place? Or is it quietly holding onto items that could harm you? Now, the fifth item might surprise you because it's something we often associate with joy and comfort, but too much of it can quietly overwhelm your home. The fifth item we need to talk about is excess kitchenware and dishes. For many of us, the kitchen is the heart of the home. It's where family memories were made. Holiday dinners, Sunday breakfasts, cups of tea shared with friends. And because of that, our cupboards often end up overflowing with plates, mugs, pots, and pans collected over decades. I once visited an older woman named Joyce who had more than 30 mugs, though she lived alone. She laughed as she pulled out a Christmas mug from 1985 and said, "This one makes me think of my kids when they were little." Then she pulled out another mug, cracked and chipped, but she insisted she couldn't part with it because her late husband used it every morning. Each dish held a memory, and over time, her cabinets became so crowded she couldn't find the items she actually used. The problem is, Too much kitchenware creates stress instead of comfort. Studies show that clutter in the kitchen contributes to overeating, lower motivation to cook, and even higher stress levels. Think about it. When your cupboards are overflowing, cooking a simple meal becomes a frustrating task of digging, searching, and balancing stacks of dishes that tumble out when you open the door. And then there's safety. Heavy, stacked pots can fall and cause injuries. Cracked or chipped dishes harbor bacteria. And cluttered counters make it harder to keep the kitchen clean, which can lead to food safety issues. But here's the good news. Letting go of excess doesn't erase the memories. You can honor them by keeping just a few meaningful pieces, like Joyce did. We helped her keep one mug that reminded her of her husband and another that reminded her of her kids. The rest, she donated to a local shelter. Suddenly, her cabinets were easy to navigate, and her kitchen felt welcoming again. She told me, "Now when I cook, it feels peaceful instead of chaotic." So, take a moment to open your cupboards. Are they filled with items that serve your present life, or ones that just remind you of the past? And speaking of the past, the sixth item is often hidden in boxes or tucked away in attics, but it can quietly weigh us down more than we realize. The sixth item, and perhaps the hardest to face, is piles of sentimental keepsakes. These are the things that tie us to our past. Boxes of birthday cards, old school projects from our children, photo albums stacked in closets, or souvenirs from trips long ago. I remember helping my aunt, Eleanor, who had lived in the same house for more than 50 years. In her attic, she had box after box of keepsakes. Her children's baby shoes, her late husband's neckties, and even receipts from vacations they had taken decades earlier. She said, "Every time I try to sort through it, I get overwhelmed. It feels like I'm erasing memories." But here's the truth. Memories live in us, not in the objects. Research on memory and emotion has shown that while physical objects can trigger feelings, the memories themselves are stored within our minds and hearts. Holding on to too many items can actually backfire, burying the truly meaningful pieces under a mountain of clutter. The emotional weight of too many keepsakes is very real. Instead of enjoying them, we often feel guilt. Guilt that we haven't organized them. Guilt that we can't keep everything. Guilt that letting go means we've stopped caring. But none of that is true. Decluttering sentimental items doesn't erase the past. It allows us to honor it more intentionally. When Eleanor and I worked together, I suggested something simple. Choose the items that made her heart light up, the ones that truly told her family's story. We created a memory box for her husband, one album of her favorite photos, and let go of the rest. She also took photos of certain items before parting with them, so she could revisit them without needing to keep everything physically. Afterwards, she said, "I finally feel like I can enjoy the memories without drowning in them." So, ask yourself, are your keepsakes bringing you joy, or are they trapping you under the weight of the past? Sometimes less really is more, because fewer items allow us to see and cherish what matters most. And while keepsakes are emotional, the next item is more practical, yet it quietly creates daily stress without us even noticing. So, we've talked through 7 things, 7 hidden culprits that can make our senior years harder than they need to be. From old clothes and expired medicines to excess furniture, each item carries a weight, either physical, emotional, or both. And what I've learned, both in my own life and through helping others, is this: decluttering isn't really about the stuff. It's about creating space for the life you want to live today. I know it's not easy. Every mug, every photo, every piece of furniture has a story. But what if you could keep the story while letting go of the object? What if you could make your home safer, calmer, and filled only with things that serve you now, not just things that once did? That's the gift of decluttering. It gives you freedom, peace, and dignity. I often say this to myself when I'm holding on to something too tightly. Does this item add to the life I want today, or does it keep me trapped in yesterday? And when the answer is yesterday, I know it's time to let go with love. If you've been listening today and you recognized yourself in any of these 7 items, I encourage you to start small. Choose just one area, one drawer, or one shelf, and give yourself the gift of space. Little by little, those choices will add up to a lighter, freer home, and a lighter, freer heart. And if this message resonated with you, don't let it end here. Subscribe to this channel, because I'll keep sharing stories, studies, and gentle guidance to help you simplify your home and your life. And please share this video with a friend or family member who might need encouragement too. You never know how much one small change could brighten their days. Remember, you deserve a home that supports you, not one that weighs you down. Your senior years should be filled with joy, peace, and space to breathe. And it all begins with letting go.